But my point is to enable those who don't personally believe or have opportunities to skills development. The thing that always motivates me around FIT is we're about addressing and enabling potential. And that's in everybody's interest. That's an economic interest, that's a social interest, and that's a human interest. And the more that we can do to facilitate that, I think it's what our mission is about, you know. One thing that we hear all the time from companies is that the level of productivity that they get from their apprentices is at a far faster rate and higher rate than third level graduates, because the third level graduate has done a learning journey of 12 hours a week for 3 years, whereas the apprentice is doing 39 hours a week for 2 years in the company. It's earn and learn. You're predominantly on the job with some off the job learning as well. I think that we've really challenged over the years is the nerdy effect of IT, that they're all nerds in the corner with their hoodies up, you know, hacking. The range of job opportunities in the tech-related areas, from project management to customer relationships to product development to innovation, they're immense. The range of career opportunities that are there. They're not just all, you know, hard-head techies in a corner. So how do we empower people to use these platforms in a way to learn and to acquire knowledge and insight and ability? Because knowledge is power.
Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of the GCS Connect Leader Series Podcast. We're talking today to Peter Davitt. He is the CEO of FIT, which is an organisation that's based in Ireland that GCS is proud to be partnered with and on the board of, that helps generally people from disadvantaged backgrounds to access jobs within technology by use of modern apprenticeships, by use of working with leaders within the technology industry. And we all know within the technology staffing world that this is such an important way to help the industry to become more diverse, to solve talent, skill shortages. But I think when we kind of go into this conversation today with Peter, we understand it's obviously the importance of a job for anyone, how that can really help change you and change society. But also as technology evolves, you know, how hiring more technology people and driving technology transformation within all ranges of business, not just the major staffing software companies, but within every single business, within every single industry, can help everyone to become more competitive and give more opportunities for everyone to grow. So without further ado, here's Peter. It's a great conversation and hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Hi, Peter. How are you?
Hello, David. I'm great. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Looking forward to this kind of conversation.
So am I, yeah. I've been doing a bit of homework and preparation, thinking about it, so I hope I had something to contribute, you know.
So, and as you told me before, I think we both had nearly a quarter of a century in our industry. So
absolutely,
yeah. If you can't give us the down low on this, Peter, then who can, eh?
Well, I remember back to David, to the green screens, you know, and the floppy drives. That's when I started in the whole tech area, so it's a long time ago now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've done a few recently where we've been doing kind of a technology bingo and kind of bringing out like old school things. So yeah, if you can,
yeah.
If you can bring out some ones that I haven't heard of. Last time we had AS400s and Novell.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, okay, so. As we always start, it's great to speak to you, Peter. Peter is the CEO of FIT, which is an organisation that GCS in Ireland work with very closely. Do you want to just quickly tell us, Peter, like what FIT does, and probably what
absolutely
first off?
Delighted to do that, David. Well, so FIT is an acronym for Fast Track into Information Technology. We're a registered charity, not-for-profit in operation. Now, this is actually our 26th year. We started in April 1999, so a bit of a dinosaur at this stage. Well, I am, maybe not the rest of the team. And I suppose our mission from day one has been to promote greater diversity and inclusion within the tech sector in Ireland, and also to build up the talent pipeline beyond just higher education arenas. So we work very much in the vocational training arena, further education and training. And really, as I say, our mission is a win-win. In one sense, you know, support the industry looking at where the ball is going in terms of tech skills and evolution, and at the same time imparting and equipping young people and not so young people with those skills to compete for jobs in the tech sector in Ireland. So at this stage, I mean, I think from the early days of it, if we look at all our initiatives, Dave, we probably supported about 250,000 learners in various different guises in terms of tech skills and tech jobs. And I think we now both, if in totality, we probably have supported somewhere in the region of 175,000 people secure employment within tech-related areas in Ireland over the years. So it's quite a substantial initiative. It's very much a collaborative initiative, though. Fit ourselves, we're a small organisation, mean, lean. At this stage, we're 50 people. We started out with a half person back in 1999. But we work very closely with education and training providers across the country of Ireland, and in the island of Ireland, in fact, because we also work in Northern Ireland as well. And we work very closely with employers and industry in terms of understanding their skill needs and building programs and initiatives to respond to those particular skill needs.
So I've been in the technology recruitment business now since 1996. And in my opinion, when I started, and probably up until I would say kind of like 2008, I think the credit crunch, people started to look at different ways of accessing talent. But genuinely in 1999, if I had a conversation, sometimes I look at this as the golden years, it was easy, but diversity and helping different types of people and different routes to market for talent was not something on the top of the agenda. So how did you do that? How did you come to almost like drive this agenda, right? So I'm assuming the world's caught up with you, right, Peter?
Well, I mean, the interesting, when I look back at the day, and I think I might have said this earlier, I didn't come into the tech sector by career choice. It wasn't my intention. I might go back and share a bit of my background. So I was from a relatively working class background. My father was a digger driver. My mother was a nurse. And indeed, my father said to me, Peter, when you leave school, you need to get a trade. There's security in a trade. So I actually left school with quite a good leaving cert. I could have gone on and done a third level qualification back then if I had chosen to. But actually, I went on and became a bricklayer, and I started an apprenticeship and completed my apprenticeship. And like chance happenings along the way. So while I was doing the apprenticeship, I used to go to a college one day a week, as part of the learning, the academic learning or the technical learning of the program. I had to go to Bolton Street College one day a week. And what happened then was we used to actually have a chaplain that used to come in to speak to us for about 40 minutes. And I wasn't necessarily religious, but I suppose through conversations with this guy, I sort of built and developed a social conscience, if you like, to some degree. He was talking a lot of the time back then about liberation theology and South America and justice and then justice in Ireland. And I suppose being idealistic, two of us then became good friends with this guy. And we decided we were going to set up a house for homeless people. So that was the journey, right? So we said, obviously, we were going to do this and we'd try and make a difference. I mean, this is 18, 19, 20 years of age, And the chaplain said, well, listen, guys, if you're going to get involved in something like this, you need to know what you're getting involved in. And he advised us that we'd go and visit a priest friend of his working in the north side of Dublin in a fairly disadvantaged community, one that would be well known. And so we went out to see this guy on a Friday afternoon. And he was to share about our ambitions, and he was running youth clubs and facilities in this area. And I went out, talked to him on the Friday, and I moved in on the Sunday and started getting involved in local community projects. And two things that happened. I got involved in two types of projects. One was youth clubs, and then and the other was welfare rights. So in this community, there was a lot of disadvantage. People had issues regarding housing and welfare rights and welfare payments, and I got involved in trying to sort of address those. And then I spent most of my time after, I was still doing the bricklaying. I'd come home the evenings and I was running youth clubs from one end of the week to the next. So senior youth clubs during the week and then junior youth clubs on a Saturday and Sunday. And over time came to realise what actually was I doing, and a lot of what I was doing was keeping people busy in their idleness, in one sense, keep them off the streets, trying to give them an alternative experience. And then on the other side, helping people who are unemployed address their welfare rights. So one thing that became very obvious to me was that one of the deficiencies in this community was jobs. that they didn't have access to jobs in the same ways as others. And naively, with a few people, got the idea of setting up a local job centre. Set up the job centre, which still operates today. But then to find that, that actually a local address from that community was a disadvantage in terms of job opportunities. So then had to look at well, what skill sets would people. And back then, the really only offerings that people got in training in that area was either welding or hairdressing. Like there were very limited opportunities for access. And through a chance happening, we happened to buy a computer system, a Windows 386, I think it was at the time, and implemented it into our facility, into the job centre. And within 6 months of that, I got a call from Microsoft saying, "Oh, do you know what? You're a job centre. Well, can we suggest that when you're talking to employers looking for people, you might ask them to recruit Microsoft certified professionals. And when people are looking for jobs, you might suggest that they become Microsoft certified." I hadn't got a clue what my Windows certification was, or Microsoft at the time was. Began to do a bit of research into it, and to find back then, nearly, Dave, if you were breathing and you had a Microsoft certification back then, you could get a job. So for me, this sort of got the thought process going. Could we leapfrog the skills barrier by enabling people to access some technical skills? And we ran a pilot program training people in Microsoft certification back then. And we have a phrase in Ireland: the hurlers on the ditch, or if the commentators on the sideline of the football pitch were saying, people won't employ these people, not from this location, So anyway, we ran the course, all 25 done it, all 25 completed it, all 25 got jobs. So then we repeated that experience and had a similar experience. And then the realisation, well, listen, there is something here and here. Can we replicate this on a wider arena? Can we look at the wider ecosystem of skill needs in the tech sector? And that's how the origins of FIT came into existence.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is amazing. And like I said, because I've obviously been in this world, I truly feel, Peter, that you are ahead of your game, right? So, you've probably been influential in driving this curve. And for me, what's interesting about that is, you taught that. So you're doing this when you were very, very young. What are your kind of guiding principles then as a leader? Because it seems to me that not many people would take that path, right? So why do you think you've got that calling to help people?
It's a great question.
We talked about chaplains here. We're talking,
yeah.
Religious, So.
Yeah, and I'm not religious. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I have some friends who so happen to be. One of my closest friends is a priest today, but I am not religious. I don't have a faith. I have high regard for those who do have a faith. But it hasn't been my motive. Like, for me, the kingdom is here on earth, rather than somewhere else. And I personally, I suppose the way I was raised, the experiences that I had as a young person, was that we all have equal right to access and opportunity, And if I can help somebody realize their potential, I suppose the thing that struck me, maybe one of the biggest influences in my life when I look back, was my own father. As I said, it was the digger drive. He had a very bad accident at one stage in his early 50s, and he lost his job. He couldn't continue doing the work. He had a very bad knee injury, and was let go. And I to be honest, then, Dave, I remember seeing my father for 2 or 3 years, very depressed. I remember him sitting. We used to have a round table, and he'd be sitting on the round table, and like his whole social arena, his contact, his peers had all gone. He wasn't earning an income. My mother, who was as I say, a nurse, had to go back out to work. And in some ways, I think that experience. He then later got on. He developed a sort of an interest later on in wood turning and woodworking, and was brilliant at it. But he'd 4 or 5 years where he was very detached and depressed, and his sense of a person was totally eroded. And I think in some ways that stuck with me. That people's potential and late potential, and people not being enabled to realise their potential was an awful waste, not just for that individual and their creativity, but for society as a whole, and indeed economies as well. So I think in some ways that's that impression in my mind some way sort of motivated the future initiatives that I got involved in. But I never started off wanting to address unemployment, or I never started off. I think like most young people, when I first I didn't know what I wanted to do. I then I think I got involved in these type of initiatives, saw how lives were being changed and transformed. Saw that I had some ability to persuade different actors, be they industry leaders, be they education training providers, be they learners, to sort of coalesce and cooperate. And I seem to have an ability to develop programs within the tech arena. Though I would say I would class myself as a jack of all trades, David, and a master of none. But I've been around technology for so many years now. I know the pace and components and facets of program development. And I say, what we're driven a bit by is always the analogy of where is the ball going and where the ball is at. And how can we make that disparity a means of advantage for people who may be disadvantaged or need an opportunity to reskill or upskills. And that's been the sort of the fulcrum of our activity.
And from your side, then, it almost kind of comes down to, and this is great, right? Because we're a technology recruitment business. We work very closely with Fit. We're on the board of Fit, and we really buy into what you're doing. But I guess what you're saying is it's the importance of having a job, the importance in someone's life of feeling fulfilled by working, by doing something that's
absolutely
working, basically.
Yeah, I mean, my experience, David, and I've been involved in the issue of employment and skills development since 1986. That's when I really started that journey. I know very few people who want to be unemployed. I know very few people who want to live on a low or income or at poverty levels. Most people who are unemployed are struggling to survive. It is not an enjoyable experience, and most people want to be productive, want to work, want to contribute, want their families to have the best opportunities in lives. But sometimes people don't get access to opportunity, or it's interpreted that the career opportunities that do exist are not for them. So like in Ireland, for example, one of the things that I suppose I've been sort of challenging for the last 30 years is, we have an obsession now with third level qualifications. The view in Ireland is the only way to a professional career is a third level qualification. And while that is a route for many, and enables many, it also has the opposite effect. It also excludes an awful lot of people who are not academic in that true sense, but are highly intelligent, highly creative, and can deliver programs and results and achieve skills. Deliver skills that industry require. So, and the interesting thing as well, on the other side, we look at third level qualifications. Like in Ireland, there's been some analysis done. Like of those who do ICT programs, something like 50% don't complete the programs. And of those who have completed the programs, something like 50% are underemployed. So what we, rather than looking at academic requirements, we, in building our programs, look at skill sets and depth of skill sets. What skill sets do you need to be effective in networking, software development, or in cybersecurity? So what I argue, or in, for example, advanced manufacturing, we've built a very, very successful program in advanced manufacturing where companies like Intel and others have adopted it in terms of skills development. And who would have said previously, really, they could only get their skills through third level qualifications. Well, they've realised, and what the wider tech industry realises, that if you broaden the vista in terms of your skill ecosystems, yes, some jobs do need high academic, but we've done repeated skill needs analysis of the tech sector since 2012, 2010, and we've repeatedly demonstrated that 65% of tech roles can be well satisfied through further education, VET training initiatives. And then we're seeing more and more companies realise this, and what they realise is that they've doubled the talent pipeline then to draw from if you respect and understand what can be delivered through various different forms of education and skills development.
Because we worked very closely last year now on Tech Ascent, which was at Croker Park, so famous Dublin landmark. And there was thousands of fantastic people there. Like, a lot of your apprentices, a lot of the people you work with companies like Salesforce, the Microsoft, Google, etc., big organizations and small organizations, medium-sized organizations. And none of them would have come into the world, none of them would have come into the technology world in a normal computer science degree way, right? That's the whole idea. And there's some amazing people there, right?
Well,
Amazing people.
absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing that we see actually now in FIT, because we're going so long, is that, people who started on FIT programs 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? And who they are now senior managers and leaders. They're C-suite members in a lot of major organizations in Ireland and overseas. And the point that I would make is, if you were to talk to a lot of them, they probably would say that they wouldn't have got the opportunity, but for FIT, to engage in such a journey of skills development. And I suppose the corollary of that point is they could have been lost to our economy, to our society, if they hadn't been enabled. And I suppose we see that again and again and again. We just recently had an intake of apprentices with the civil service in Ireland. The public service, civil service, and as a result of that, there's a cohort that have just finished their apprenticeship program, and 80% of them have secured full-time roles within the civil service in Ireland. So they're meeting the needs and challenges of our society as a result of the apprenticeship program that they participated in.
So if you were someone, because I always find it quite interesting, and kind of, we will have offices in New York, we have offices in Dublin, and you have offices in London, right? And then you think to yourself sometimes that there's disadvantaged areas, and it's particularly in someone like London, or it's so close, like disadvantaged areas are so close to the city of London or to King's Cross, where Google and Facebook are based. When you sit and talk to people like this, what do you think? What do you think the key challenges that these people see that stop them kind of applying for a job down the road? What is in the mindset that stops them from doing that? And then what do you give them to kind of say, no, that I can break that feeling, break that barrier?
I mean, that's what FIT is about ultimately, David. I mean, self-belief is a critical element of this. I think a lot of, I would heard people in the past in disadvantaged communities, and then in disadvantaged communities today, because we work in a lot of disadvantaged communities. Oh, that's not for me. That's for other people. That's for better. Sure, I couldn't do that. Do you know what I mean? No, I wouldn't be able to. What you're saying, I could get a career in IT? What you're saying, I could be working in Microsoft or Google? No, that's not me. That's for people with third level qualifications or with resource. So there's a self-determinant element of that, but there's also stigmatization. I mean, one of the biggest challenges we had, as you know, we're now the national coordinating provider for tech apprenticeships in Ireland. We've 3 tech apprenticeships up and running very successfully. We've over 1,000 apprentices now in situ. But we run apprenticeships and further education training. So they're level 6 in Ireland, they'll be level 4 in the UK. In software development, network engineering, and cyber security, and that, like, one of the challenges we had, even in the early days when our board is most of the major technology companies in Ireland. So, no, my board is household names are on the FIT board, But I mean, one of the challenges, I remember some of the companies,
and little GCS as well,
and GCS is a key player within that, absolutely. But I remember at the early stage when we said we journey on the road of bringing to play tech apprenticeship programs. Because just to put that in context, in Ireland, unlike say UK and mainland Europe, we are laggards in terms of modern apprenticeships. Up until 2018, the only apprenticeships in Ireland were the traditional trades, the bricklayer, the plasterer, the plumber, etc. We didn't have any other modern apprenticeships. So we're playing catch up ever since then. So 2018, there was a decision made by government and policy that we should adopt a more varied portfolio of apprenticeships, and that has happened over that period. But I remember even we had champions on the board who were representing major companies, who, when they went back into their own organisations, couldn't actually avail of the apprenticeship program in the first instance, because their recruitment criteria was that it was a degree or a master's, that they wouldn't consider individuals unless they had to go back in reconstruct their recruitment criteria so as to be able to consider apprentices within their organizations.
And when you're dealing with people that don't have that belief, as soon as they get that knockback, this is self-perpetuating, right? Well, yeah, obviously I do need. If you go through Indeed or go through a job board, when you look at an IT job, generally they're saying need to have X, need to have X.
Exactly.
I haven't got that, so I'm never going to be able to get this job.
Yeah, exactly. And the other side of it, don't forget, particularly when it's third level qualifications. And don't get me wrong, I started off as a bricklayer. I did my leaving cert. I completed school. I went on and done a degree, a master's afterwards as my career meandered, and I'm toying around with doing a PhD at the moment. So I am pro further education or continuous education. But to suggest that the only way a means to a career in IT is through a third level qualification is incorrect and inaccurate, and then needs to be challenged because it provides great opportunity both for employers and for a broader cohort of individuals who want to pursue careers in tech-related areas.
So it sounds like to me you've got two different cohorts within your world that you need to almost persuade to remove their barriers, right? So on one side you've got the disadvantaged people, or the people that are not coming from standard educational background, and then you've got the talent people, the recruiters, the managers that already have a presupposed bias towards those types of people. And what have how is this been a process over a period of years and time, just kind of continuing? Because I think we've talked about how you deal with the people who want to get into this, but what do you do to overcome those barriers with clients, with customers, with companies?
Very good question. I mean, listen, I don't think we could have started the tech apprenticeships before 2018. It was that gestation period in terms of evangelization, if you like, the different cohorts as to what could be achieved through our type of programs, sort of way. So absolutely. So we've different audience that we have to persuade and convince and encourage. And in the earlier years, it was employers that there is a wider cohort of people that you could consider. Now, how we done that wasn't like we in the early days. We've heard of corporate social responsibility, and now we have diversity and inclusion. And while all of those are very important, in the end, how we went about it was, if we weren't addressing real needs for industry, if we couldn't satisfy skill needs within organisations, charity wouldn't last for very long. So what we done was from early on in the FIT journey was look at the skill needs of industry. What precisely do employers look in the areas of networking or software development? And then look at the sub-skill sets in that and decided what curriculum and programs we could develop. So we developed our own programs, in constant dialogue with industry. And lo and behold, what the industry realised that we could actually build more bespoke programs to their needs than generalised programs, like a computer science degree. Ours had a depth of knowledge more so than a breadth of knowledge, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not interested in the history of Boolean logic. Do you mean? I want somebody who, if they're going into a networking or software development, so that they have a depth of knowledge and that they have employability skills, transferable skills, project management skills, communications alongside that. So on one side, that's been one journey. The other then is persuading not just the learners and job seekers, but if you like, Mammy Daddy Ireland, that an alternative route to a career in tech-related areas was through an apprenticeship program or for a vocational education and training program, because they do believe that the only way to a career was through a third-level qualification. So and then it's the individual themselves. Yes, this is for you. You can do it. You're well able to do this. So one of the things that we do in terms of the learner arena is we've more and more in recent years, we go into schools at very early stages, transition year. In Ireland it'll be third year. What's the lower exam? Not the GCSE. What's the lower exam in the earlier exam in the UK?
Always GCSEs.
Yeah. So we would go into schools around that area and introduce them technology. Expose them to what robotics can do. bringing them and show them advanced manufacturing skills, and introduce them to the wider ICT arena. And what we're doing is we bring in practical projects and demonstration units where they can play around and toy around with the technology. They can put on an Oculus Rift and have a go with something, or they work with PLCs. So we do a lot of work going into schools and community groups and organisations to say to young people later on, there is a career for you if you want it. You know,
get them young, Peter.
Absolutely, and then likewise, we do a lot of work for example, when we look at our apprenticeship program now, you might think it's all just school leavers, you know, the Leaving Cert or equivalent. Well, actually, the vast majority of people who are currently in our apprenticeship program are in the age range of 25 to 45, and they're people who have started careers. You know, they've had a work history before, and have decided really they want something more substantive, or they need a better earning capacity. They've seen the impact of technology or IT skills in the workplace, and they want to become more proficient. So the vast majority doing our apprenticeship program are not those early learners, early job seekers. They are these mature individuals who see this as an opportunity to develop the skills and leapfrog the skills barrier to a more professional career.
You mentioned at the start about trade, like learn a trade. And I guess in some ways what you have to think about is, you know, in this day and age, you know, and being a network engineer, being a software developer, it's kind of like set as dark arts that no one understands. But really, when you think about it, it is a trade, right? You know, being an infrastructure or a systems administrator is no different to being
absolutely
a chippy or a plumber or something. You know, there's very specific skills. You have to know what you're doing. You know, you have to be very organized. You know, you have to learn skills. You have to keep up to date with it, and you generally needed when there's problems, right?
Absolutely. You remind me. Actually, I remember something in IBM once saying to me about, you know, that a plumber is a programmer of water. Do you know what I mean? Do you know that they're still the same? He has to work out a system and configuration to get the plumbing into a building or a facility so that it works effectively. You know, so like he's got a whole technical requirements. He's got you know, piping and pumps and all the rest to put in play and put in situ. You know, so it's a different skill set, but they're similar. They're very, very similar, and that's the point. I think the thing that struck me about I think I was always going to try and develop a tech apprenticeship, even before we actually had a pilot before they proposed that they would have modern apprenticeships. Because I think one thing that struck me back to my own experience was that an apprenticeship was a brilliant way of learning, because you learned in the presence of experts. Do you know? So, like when I started my bricklaying apprenticeship, I never held a trowel or a level in my hand at all. I didn't know what to do with them. Do you know what I mean? But I quickly early on got involved with fellas who were experienced tradesmen, sort of saying, Peter, you do it this way, you don't do it that way, and this is how, you know. So I was learning in the presence of experts very early on. And interestingly, we use the same principles, you know, for high professionals. So our consultants and our medical doctors, and indeed our nurses, do an internship, which is an apprenticeship type model of learning. And in some ways, we sort of devalued the apprenticeship as being something of a lesser. Where my experience was, it was probably the best learning experience that I had in my life. And I said then in my own instance, well, listen, why can't we adopt that model in the development of tech skills? And the thing what it does allow, as you know, David, like how, say, you know, one company uses a programming language as against another, might be very, very different. You know what I mean? Or how they use a CRM system. Well, it's the same technology, but they use it in a different format. And what the apprenticeship program allows companies is to bespoke the skills of their apprentice early on. So one thing that we hear all the time from companies is that the apprenticeship program, that the level of productivity that they get from their apprentices is at a far faster rate and higher rate than third level graduates, because the third level graduate has done a learning journey of 12 hours a week for 3 years or whatever, you know, whereas the apprentice is doing 39 hours a week for 2 years in the company. It's earn and learn. You're predominantly on the job with some on the job, complemented with some on the job, off the job learning as well. So my point is, you're being quickly focused into the demands and requirements of the business, and you know, the other superfluous stuff is pushed to the sides.
Do you see? I mean, again, I've worked in the industry for many years, and kind of currently to you. there's obviously certain areas of the world that have produced a lot of technology people. India being one, the Indian subcontinent, right? If I look back on stats in terms of my placements, a very large majority have been people that come from that part of the world. And do you look at how they build and do their education and do you think, well, we could do it more like this? Do you think it's a cultural thing? Eastern Europe again is produce huge amounts of very highly skilled technology people. Do you think that there's more that maybe the UK and Ireland, which doesn't so much, could do to change that kind of educational pattern?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not too sure. I'm informed enough to give a solid opinion, but my own general view is like, if you look at, say, places like India and that, like, it is through the pathway of third level qualifications. You know what I mean? And who are those people then who are doing those programs? They're probably, I'm not saying they are, but they are probably the more privileged in terms of that society, as against the more disadvantaged. Do you know what I mean? So in some ways, for me, that reaffirms the status quo, possibly. That it's just that these countries have large populations and they're attracted overseas because they're better salary rates and possibly better
and
conditions.
you get a points-based system. So it's,
yes,
if I learn this, then this will help me to get to the US or to get to the UK.
Exactly.
Like, I to do this I wouldn't be able to go being a carpenter or a plumber, but I would be able to do it if I was a software programmer. So this is my fast track to.
I think that's how I see it, Dave, definitely. And so I would sort of say what I'd like to do is to set up a Fit India. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Among the more disadvantaged in a society or in Eastern Europe or wherever else. Do you know what I mean? Like, my point is to enable those who don't personally believe or have opportunities to skills development. Like, I mean, at this stage, while I am, I'm in essence a bricklayer. I mean, I've developed courses in software development. I've developed courses in network engineering. I've just developed a course in AI. And I'm no smarter than anybody else. It's having opportunity and having exposure. I'm around these technologies so much and for so long now. I can build progress. And I think the big thing, like when you look at, I was looking at don't know if you saw the World Economic Forum, the new report, Jobs of the Future report that came out there last week. I mean, it's alarming. I mean, if it's just some of the stats, like job creation declined. An estimated 170 million new jobs will be created, while 92 million jobs will be displaced, leading a net growth of 78 million jobs globally in 2030, or 2030, sorry. And then when we look at skills disruption, around 39% of skills are expected to be transformed or outdated by 2030, right? Like, it's just phenomenal. And by 59% of the workforce, 59% of the global workforce will require retraining by 2030.
What we need is an organisation that will help disadvantaged people to retrain.
Well, see that. I see that's the point. And one of the points that I wanted to make then is, I mean, the labour market transformation is the biggest challenge to our economies and society, and cohesiveness in society. Okay, there is the whole geopolitical stuff and other things. But this transformation, it could be a means of inclusion or exclusion. And that's my biggest concern. I remember in the early days of FIT, we got involved in what I think it was called at the time digital literacy initiatives. Like back in 1999, early 20s, we were supporting people how to sort of use a PC, how to do their online banking. You know what I mean? How to book a holiday online. So we were about the digital divide and digital literacy. Well, there's a new digital divide imminent, which is AI literacy. One of the things that I want to do is, like, one of the analogies I give, I remember, when I was in school, the dark ages, and you got a project to do, you might see if you could find a National Geographic in the library or at home somewhere. You might even remember National Geographic Day, but it was these magazines, like encyclopedia.
And a subscription for the half of my, up until I was about 14. I love
Yeah.
Geographic.
And you be trying to find one, and you'd be trying to do a project, and you find a few lines from somewhere, and you might take it out of it, then you might even cut a picture or one or two out of them and add them to their project, and people will be looking at you sideways, sort of thing, But that was our basis of knowledge. And then as things evolved, I remember, my kids going to school. My kids are all adults now, but I remember now Google came on the horizon, and all of a sudden teachers were saying, "Oh no, we can't have our kids using Google. Oh, that's a source of misinformation, and they won't be learning." Yeah, and now we're hearing, AI, and you shouldn't be using AI to do a project. Well, I'm the complete opposite. My goal is, how do we make everybody AI proficient? How can everybody maximize and manipulate AI to their benefit in terms of knowledge development, skills development? And that's one of the things that I want to look at, is to make sure that AI becomes a medium for inclusion,
Totally.
not
So
exclusion.
we've talked a lot about, I've had a few podcasts recently where we talked about businesses being competitive based on AI, right? So a medium-sized business can compete with a bigger business if they set their AI models up so that a lot of the roles can be automated that a bigger business would already have a team to do, right? So it can be much more nimble, a lot more effective, a lot more productive in competition with a bigger business. And I guess what we're saying here is AI can help people that are disadvantaged. AI can help people that maybe don't have the educational background to actually be as clever, switched on, certainly, armed for today's world as someone, because we've all got the same tools to use, right? We've all got the same AI tools.
Well, a simple example for me, David, was I loaded down the Future Jobs Report 2025 and read it. It's 282 pages.
Well, fantastic. That's good.
Well, then what did I do?
Really for you, Peter.
I read it, but then what did I do? I went to AI and asked it to give me a P-stage summary of the key findings and highlights, and I checked one against the other, and it was an excellent summary of it. Now, which would better inform, say, a person new to a space and wanting to understand? If I was to give that 282-page document to somebody, they'd never read it. Never read it. But I can say that the summary that I got was totally accurate.
Yeah. And if you're interested in certain bits, you could say, which bit should I look at to find out more about X?
Exactly.
Right. I think.
So how do we empower people to use these platforms in a way to learn and to acquire knowledge and insight and ability?
Yeah.
Because knowledge is power.
Yeah,
and a
lot of the problems you have, like you just talked there about different disadvantaged people, that certain kind of geopolitical movements, that sort of stuff. It's all to go back to what you said, that people feel that they haven't got the access to a good life, to jobs, to wealth creation, to supporting their families, and generally in this day and age, the way you do that is by working in the more modern industries, right? This is it. We need to help people to become part of that world and not see, well, that's that world, I can't get into that.
Absolutely. And I think the thing I always say about disadvantage and inclusion, exclusion, disadvantage isn't a life sentence. You know what I mean? Disadvantage is the circumstances that people find themselves in for one reason or another, be it poverty, be it a lack of access, be it a lack of access to education. Don't forget, in both UK and Ireland, and as many parents will tell you today, a third level qualifications is highly expensive. You know what I mean? There's many people, it's not within their range, even if they have the ambition to do it. So should they be then deprived in terms of their development of their knowledge and capacity because they don't have the means and resources to pursue or fund?
And should industry be deprived? Should
exactly
be deprived? Exactly both ways, right?
From the lost potential. I suppose the thing that always motivates me around FIT is we're about addressing and enabling potential. You know what I mean? And fulfillment. And that's in everybody's interest. That's an economic interest, that's a social interest, and that's a human interest, And the more that we can do to facilitate that, I think it's what our mission is about, But at the same time, in a way that gives very hard skills to people so they are productive in our economy, in our industries, and that's the sort of the feedback we get from employers for the most part is that the people that they get through these programs are highly productive, highly competent, highly communicative, and deliver results.
Yeah, and that's what you want, right? You want those, like you said, the alumni, the success stories, and we're proud of that. When we've worked with you on the kind of tech ascent, you can kind of see people getting jobs, and
Well, I mean, the great, as you say, that day, the tech ascent. I mean, I think at one stage we had 1,400 in the room at one stage of young people there going around the different exhibitors, seeing the different technology, and saying, "God, could I do this too? Is there a job for me?" I mean, I'll give you a simple example on the advanced manufacturing side, which I think might be useful. As I mentioned there, people talk about advanced manufacturing, but the vast majority of people don't know what it is. I want a job in advanced manufacturing. What is that? So through a chance happening, I got in conversations with companies like Intel back in 2014, 15. They were sort of saying, listen, we can't get access to the full cohort of skills we require for our facilities. And I said, well, listen, is there a possibility that we could build out a course in further education training rather than a third level qualification? And they were a bit apprehensive, a bit jaundiced about it. And I said, well, listen, can we give it a go? No one will lose, no one will be injured could we sit down for 3 months. And in fairness, a number of companies, and in particular Intel, sat down with us and we built out a program in advanced manufacturing. That program now has something like a 92% placement rate into the advanced manufacturing arena in Ireland and overseas. So much so that indeed Intel has adopted the curriculum for their new facilities in Ohio and in Magdeburg. And the point of it being was, what did we do? We built the program. We listened to the needs of employers, and we built it. But the capacity was within the reach of the qualification. Do you know what I'm saying? And then we were able to go to people sort of say, you could get a job in advanced. What is advanced manufacturing? Will you be working with robotics and PLCs and electronics? Oh, could I? Would I? Should I? So, and all of a sudden, part of this is making people aware of what these jobs are for. What does a software developer do? What's cybersecurity? Like, we try to make that much more meaningful for people. And also, I think that we've really challenged over the years, particularly trying to ensure greater female participation, is the nerdy effect of IT. That they're all nerds in the corner with the hoodies up, hacking. The range of job opportunities in the tech-related areas, from project management to customer relationships to product development to innovation. They're immense. The range of career opportunities that are there. They're not just all hardhead techies in a corner. And it's interesting when you look at that report from the World Economic Forum. Of the top 10 skill requirements, only three are technology based. The other ones listed are creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, curiosity, lifelong learning, leadership and social influence, talent management, analytical thinking, and environmental stewardship. So it's very interesting.
I've got those three. I could do that. That's me. You've said myself. So yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? So it's understanding also what are the requirements of these ecosystems. The other thing that struck, the other thing I'd mention very quickly as well, I hope I'm not deviating, is over the last number of years through an opportunity, I work closely with the Industrial Development Authority in Ireland, and I've done a lot of skill needs analysis with companies, and while there's a number of companies who what I would class are early adopters and quite au fait and up to speed with the emerging technologies and digitalization and data analytics and all the rest. There's still a broad sweep of companies who are not who've heard the phrase data analytics or digitalization, you know what I mean, or AI, but don't fundamentally understand how it might apply to their business. So there's a whole journey there of exploration and discovery and advice that a lot of our corporates require. How do you actually apply data analytics or digitalization in emerging industries? And
we're talking there about the civil service. How do we digitize government? How do
exactly
smaller businesses? Again, to go back to how does this make you more competitive? If you're implementing these things, you need the people to implement them, to understand it, the have that.
And you need to understand those ecosystems in terms of what are the actual skill sets that are actually required. I was very interested. I was doing a bit of analysis with a company there a number of months back, and we got into a debate about skills and skill needs and all the rest. And they were saying that, like for them, in terms of their business, it was no longer the profit motive. It wasn't the profit motive anymore. It was the carbon motive, the zero emissions, because the businesses that they were in, they were a subsidiary of another major global conglomerate, and a lot of their they were in infrastructure, the construction, and all these type of arenas and project management. But a lot of their projects were government based, and the whole thing about zero emissions and environmental sustainability and all the rest has come more and more to the fore in terms of how they do their businesses. So, and they were sort of saying that when they'd done a sort of an audit, and when they looked at certain requirements, they were meeting their emissions. But when they looked at their supply chains, where their products came to, where the materials came from, they had to reassess all of that. And now they're sort of saying the best way that they're going to resolve some of these issues is by incorporating AI and greater analytics into their existing delivery. So my point is, how many companies are understanding how you apply these technologies in a meaningful way?
And I think that links into, I guess, in some ways, we think about IT jobs and AI jobs and digital transformation jobs as jobs that the big software there's a huge amount in Dublin, right? The big software companies do. But it's in the same way as you think to yourself, well, there's probably a number of very, very good medium-sized Irish businesses that if they thought I could implement these types of things into my business, this would supercharge my business, right?
Absolutely.
There's the battery of the business. So, but therefore, they probably wouldn't be. It's a bit harsh to say, but there's Microsoft, Accenture, et cetera, going to hire the creme de la creme, the computer science graduates, right? So if you think about it, like if they understand that, like, there's plenty of other people that can do this for you. You don't have to be up against Microsoft. If you look at different ways of market, bring these people in, give these people opportunities. Both sides can win, right?
Absolutely.
I need some people who want to work on AI, and you need an AI job. So let's come together and regenerate this business, right?
Absolutely, and I think both our FDI and our indigenous companies need to more fully appreciate what these transformations in technologies can do in terms of application, in terms of efficiencies and productivity. And I don't think there's a lot of conversation on the skill needs, but there isn't the same conversation around the skills adoption and adaptation.
The business.
How do you apply these processes in practice?
In a different way.
And that's a part for a conversation somewhere along the line as well.
I mean, we could do a three-parter on this one. I think it'd be great. But I always what I'm always interested to know is what are you most excited about? We're recording this at the start of 25. So what are you most excited about in the next 12 months for FIT, for your cohort of people?
Well, I suppose, at a very basic level, I think that the whole transformation in the workforce creates more opportunity. Do you know what I mean? That and if we're forced up best stressed in terms of looking to where the ball is going to, as I said earlier, we can develop programs and we can empower and equip more people to pursue career opportunities that others mightn't even have thought about yet. So I think it's a very fertile period ahead of us in terms of 2025, 2026 and beyond, and for me is how we then make these this transformation arena a means for advantage and inclusion as against creating an apartheid or a disadvantage. So how do we utilize these technologies to empower and enable more people acquire skills, skill sets, employment opportunities and careers on good pay, as against being for a selective audience who would pursue a certain career anyway.
Brilliant. Peter, it's been wonderful to talk to you. Good luck.
Thanks very much, David. I hope that was of some value.
It's been sterling work, and obviously FIT is something, if you're listening in Ireland, something that people can get involved with. How would if they're a business and they want to reach out, if they're a person they want to reach out and find out more, what would they do?
I mean, there's a whole variety of different offerings in terms of skills training. It's not just apprenticeship programs, but it's a variety of different training opportunities and facilities within FIT. But I mean, the first part of the call is www.fit.ie. All the information is there. As I say, we have programs in ICT technology. We've programs in circular economy and in advanced manufacturing. So there's a whole range of tech related. I suppose they all have a tech facet to them. And what we're seeing is, I suppose, the really strong feedback from employers that have participated in the apprenticeship program is that they've got access to talent in a timely manner that's highly productive. And the other thing that the apprenticeship program, that we hear a lot about from the apprenticeship program, is because it's a vehicle on earn and learn, where the employer commits to you and invests in you from day one. The level of loyalty between the employer and the apprentice is really, really strong, and therefore there's reduced turnover. So there's a level of commitment and shared vision in terms of the skills development arena, So I'd encourage any company that is looking to access talent, develop talent, or also, by the way, the other way where the apprenticeship program can be really useful and successful to employers is where they need, because as we look at that there, that economic forum's stats there, the huge requirement, 59% requirement for upskilling between the peers now in 2030. Well, a really valid and valuable way to do that is through the apprenticeship program, because they're already your existing staff. You just adopt the curriculum as their upskilling mechanism to acquire those further higher skills that are now in demand across the economies.
Everybody wins. So
everybody wins.
FIT, fit.ie, and thank you very much, Peter.
Thanks, David. Take care.